Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. So I want to just continue this conversation that we've been having on the invasion that's going on. I know that there's other things to talk about. You know, the stock market, the economy, the election, Russia, Iran, Israel, Turkey, all kinds of things going on. I get it. But as far as what I think is most likely to affect us immediately, it's this one. Because it's affecting a lot of people already. I've gotten feedback from you folks, and several of you have said, hey, it's already happening in my area. You've sent me news links and stuff that these problems are, well, they're happening in more places than just the obvious border towns and the big cities. We have to really be taking notice of this and getting ready. This is a very critical issue because I am not confident whatsoever that any local government officials, for the most part, are really going to be able to do a whole lot about this. Even if, you know, your local police or your local sheriff or whatever is on board with keeping this problem out, they arrest them, and then what do they do with them? I mean, they themselves can't really go shipping them back. That's kind of a federal government thing. Are they going to, you know, stuff them in their jails that are already overwhelmed? There's not a whole lot of good solutions right now. And honestly, to not sound so negative, there's not a lot of great solutions for you and I. You know, if you think that at some point, you know, people are just going to stand up and fight back, that's a possibility. But look what's been going on in Europe. When they've tried to fight back or push back, the government has been arresting people, throwing them in jail. In fact, they've been releasing criminals out of prison over in England so that they can put people in jail that have, you know, said mean things on the internet and said mean things in person. There was a video just the other day of a school teacher in England being arrested because, it may have been Ireland, but he was being arrested because he did not comply with a lot of this woke stuff, transgender pronouns and all that kind of stuff. And they're doing the same thing with people that are not complying or being respectful to all of these foreigners, religion, and so forth. So that kind of stuff is very likely to start happening here in the United States as people become more fed up with the problem and try to push back. So the reality is there's not a lot of big good solutions to fix this problem. We have to be prepared to endure this for a while. And yes, have some plans, especially in your local community, as you build community, as you make good connections and relationships with people around you, of how to push back on a local level. But on a broad scale, there's so much. You know, conservatively speaking, 10 to 20, 30 million have entered this country, and it's very possibly 40, 50, and some people are even saying upwards of 100 million. And that's going back over several years. When you're looking at numbers like that, it's really hard to come up with a viable solution. You know, we're talking, you know, numbers that would rival the entire world's army. If you added up all of the armies, especially all of the armies of people that we are enemies with, all of their armies wouldn't even add up to the amount of people that's invaded this country illegally. And the problems are just expanding. You need to be keeping your eyes peeled, your head on a swivel. Situational awareness is going to be a must. If you live in a city, even town, anywhere that you might see people moving in that aren't speaking English, and they don't look like they're from around there. Now, I don't want to get all xenophobic or anything like that, but in situations like this, you need to at least be aware. That doesn't mean that they're all criminals and all bad, but at least be aware of these things happening. And if what we're seeing happen like in Colorado and Chicago and some of these other places, a lot of what the criminal gangs are doing is that they're preying on their fellow illegals. They're moving into areas that were predominantly asylum seekers, and they're doing the same things to them here as they were back in their own country, you know, using extortion and threats to get them to pay for security or to provide things for them. And so if you start to see an increased number of migrants in your community, it's very possible that you could eventually see some illegals, some criminal gangs move into that area also. I know there's a banging in the back. It's a backboard. I'm sorry. It's just, it is what it is. So we have to keep our head on a swivel and be paying attention to that. I still believe that some of the better options are to get as far away from a lot of these people as you can. Get into a more rural area. You're going to find more like-minded people, more people that are willing to stand up against this stuff. And not all rural areas are the same. Some rural areas are very left, you know, of center and very woke. The more conservative, the more traditional, pro-gun type communities, the more likely they are to actually take a stand against this kind of stuff. And get as self-sufficient as possible. Because as the street wars start in the United States because of this, it's going to get to a point that you don't want to go out very often. And so you're going to want to be in a place where you can sustain life for a while on your own property. And that's not just going to be because you have a big old food pile, but, you know, stockpile of food, but you also want to be producing your own food. You want to be able to take care of your family, and having a good relationship with the people around you so that you can do that as a community is going to be a must. I know that these sound like, you know, crazy ideas for the fact that it would get to that point, but you have to understand it's already to that point in some areas. You know, if you look into the news reports, for instance, out of Aurora, Colorado, the people in those areas, they were talking about how they were, you know, locking themselves down. In fact, there's this one video of a woman in an apartment and how she's, you know, added all these new locks to her doors and how she barricades her doors when she's in the house to lock herself in, and how they're afraid to go out on the streets, they're afraid to go shopping, they're afraid to go to work because of the level of crime on the streets. So it's already to that point for a lot of people, and the possibility of it coming to the more and more of us is becoming really likely. And so now is not the time to kind of glaze over or to not really be paying attention to this, to roll your eyes and think that it's not going to happen where you're at. It could happen anywhere. There is no place that is completely and perfectly safe from this. There are places that it's better, that you're going to be better off in trying to survive against this, but I don't think that there's any place that you know is guaranteed to be untouched. So you have to have multiple plans of action, and how to keep your family safe, how to keep your property safe. You know, the types of gangs that are coming across the border, they're nothing like the gangs here in America. And I don't want to glorify or downplay the level of violence that U.S. gangs have, but for the most part, some of them at least still have certain levels of civility. As horrible as they are, a lot of these gangs that are coming across from various countries, none whatsoever. I don't know how many of you saw the videos a few months back over in Haiti where they were literally barbecuing human beings on the streets and consuming them. There are stories that I couldn't and I wouldn't tell you here publicly on YouTube, of stories that's been sent to me that I believe are very, you know, real stories from good sources of the things that they've seen happen in Africa and some of these countries in South America. The level of cruelty, the level of just demonic behavior. Those are the people that's coming across the border. You know, we're not getting you know, a bunch of their engineers and doctors and stuff. We're getting the worst of these nations. This has been warned for years now, and now we're finally starting to see it. And it's not that I'm telling you there's nothing you can do. I'm telling you that there aren't a lot of options, and so we need to be doing everything we can to just prepare to take care of ourselves. Yes, still be active locally. Definitely try to be a positive influence on local government officials and stuff. That's kind of a given, but please do not put all your faith into the fact that those options will be successful. There's a lot of money, a lot of power, a lot of influence coming down even on the local officials, even in your conservative and rural areas and stuff. There's a lot of push on influence on those people from high up elite globalists to influence what they do and how they govern. And so just solely depending on electing the right person or, you know, having a good conservative government leadership is not enough. It's not enough. We have to understand that the responsibility for our safety is in our own hands. And this situation has gotten beyond out of control, and it will continue to spiral out of control. Again, pay attention to what's happened in Europe. And Europe is always just a step ahead of us. So over the next few months, will it get to that level here? It's very possible. And so we need to be preparing ourselves every day. And I understand it's happening in so many communities. I got an email yesterday or this morning from someone in Maine talking about how bad it's gotten in Maine, how they've been shipping asylum seekers, I think from Africa for the most part, into Maine. The level of crimes and things that's happening there. This is happening all over. And we need to be finding places where there's still a majority of folks like us. You know, I know some of you say, oh, you need to stay where you're at and stand your ground. How can you stand your ground if you live in an area where no one's like you, where you're kind of an island unto yourself, that everyone else is the woke liberals and they're not going to protect and defend themselves, and they're certainly not going to work to protect you. You know, living in places like that are just not wise whatsoever. Regardless of what kind of connection you have there. Right now, your focus needs to be on protecting your family and finding a place and finding a plan to do just that, where you can do it successfully, the most successfully, because this situation is out of control and it's only going to get worse. Folks, it's time to get your houses in order and to prepare yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thanks for watching. Catch you in the next video.